Welcome to the Collecting the King show. Today is a special edition of the show that we're going to call Elvis. Simply Elvis, okay? And there's a good reason for that, because we're going to be talking about Baz Luhrmann's new film, which is coming out, called Elvis. And we're also going to be talking about the history of movies made about Elvis and kind of give our own personal opinions or views or reviews of all of those things up to this point, okay? Now, of course, we haven't seen Baz Luhrmann's movie yet, but we did see the trailer, and it came out, I believe, about 3 weeks ago or so, and the Elvis world went absolutely nuts. They went bonkers. Now, before I go any further, I need to introduce the one and only Elvis disciple, self-proclaimed Elvis disciple himself, Johnny B. Say hello.
Hello, everybody. Hello out there in Elvis land.
You only get one person applaud for you.
That's it.
we need a bigger audience. You need more applause.
I'll applaud for myself.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I know one guy that doesn't applaud for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I went to a record store recently, and I was checking out and everything, and I said, "Hey, how do you like the show?" "Oh, I love the show. That's great. But there's a guy that comes in here and he absolutely hates Johnny B."
Well, you might hate me even more today after this show.
We're going to talk about the history of Elvis movies about Elvis. All right. Do you have anything to say in general before we kind of go down the list?
Yes, I don't like them. Yes, I don't. I'm not a big. I'm not. It depends on how well they were made, but you have this list here, and
well, we'll go through the list.
We'll go through the list,
but
generally speaking, I don't like them. Because I know I'm just such a big fan, and I know Elvis so well in his history. Now, I'm not saying I know everything, but I'm just not a big. I like documentaries on Elvis, like Elvis 56 and some of those kind of things. I like those.
Elvis on tour.
Elvis on tour. That's the way or some things that talk about him in the 50s. To me, they're glorified impersonator movies. I mean, I don't know. Well, that's how I kind of feel about them.
Okay, so you're saying the documentaries are okay.
The documentaries I love because I always learn a lot. I liked Kurt Russell. We're going to talk about the first one because I like Kurt Russell, and I know Kurt Russell loves Elvis. He worked with him. He kicked him in the leg at World's Fair.
It happened at the World's Fair.
So I know Kurt. I liked. And at that time when that movie came out, Elvis had only been gone for 2 years, and I was really still in that mourning period, really. Yeah. So I looked forward to that, and I enjoyed. And that had some big stars. I think Shelley Winters was in that even.
She played his mom.
She played his mom, I think. So.
Yeah, and his father, Bing Russell, played Vernon.
I liked that movie. And I had the soundtrack. I went crazy with it.
Soundtrack. Cue the soundtrack. All right. Here, ladies and gentlemen, here's the soundtrack. You want to know the value of this record? $20. That's about it, right?
Yeah.
10 to $20. Yeah. Since we're talking about this, what did you think of Ronnie McDowell?
Well, he was great. We met Ronnie McDowell, at your show a couple of times. I like it's very good. He sounds a lot like Elvis. I couldn't remember. There's no actual Elvis on that album.
No, on this album, there's no.
That's right.
There's no Elvis
no
at
real
all.
Elvis, yeah.
But Ronnie McDowell does.
No, he was
a
great.
really good job.
Oh yeah, he did a really good job.
Yeah, one day he came walking through the show, and I was surprised how tall he was.
Yeah.
God, he was like 6'2" or 3.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
He was a big guy, and he was walking through, and I think he was walking through with a guy who knew Ron Howard. The movie director. I liked the soundtrack when it came out. Well, anyway, I know a lot of people have seen this record around and everything, and it's probably only worth.
Yeah, I had it. I played the heck out of it.
I did too. Elvis was 1979, and as we said, it was starred Kurt Russell, and it was directed by John Carpenter. I was like you, there was a bit of mourning involved, because I was really upset when Elvis died, and I remember. A year or so had gone by, and I went through my Orion phase. Remember when they said that Elvis was still alive?
Yeah.
And this guy named Orion, who we found out later was actually Jimmy Ellis, was doing these records for Sun Records, and he did a recording with Jerry Lee Lewis, like a duet or something. I don't know if they actually did it together or if they were cut together. It was edited together. And so my review of Elvis, as of right now, I think it was the best movie made about Elvis Presley using actors. I think John Carpenter did a great job of directing. But he's one of my favorite directors anyway, but I'm more used to his horror films and science fiction stuff. But he did a really good job of on a very low budget of trying to recreate everything that happened to Elvis from the early years all the way up to, I think it didn't go to his death.
No,
it didn't.
No, it didn't. The movie was out of sequence on some things. That's what he... Remember, they talked about his divorce in it a little bit. They showed him getting a divorce in it and saying goodbye to Lisa Marie, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And that was like 73. So the movie was...
Well, they had to take... This is an issue that I think everybody's going to have, even with the new movie, is you got to take a certain amount of creative liberty. You know, you can't make a boring movie. If it was just completely about every single thing that happened in his life exactly as it happened, it might be pretty boring. It has to have some kind of dramatic effect, and I'm sure that's what John Carpenter did, and I'm sure that's what Baz Luhrmann has done as well. All right, let's move to the next one. This one is so incredibly bad. I never want. I watched it one time, and I never want to see it again. Okay, no, and that honor goes to Elvis and the Beauty Queen in 1981, which starred Don Johnson before he was in Miami Vice. I mean, I knew he had done some kind of lame movies, you know, and then I guess he had the opportunity to do Elvis, so he played Elvis. Wow, was it bad? Who was the Beauty Queen anyway?
Linda Thompson.
Maybe it was Linda Thompson. Elvis and the Beauty Queen was, I don't know. It was
stupid.
Really quite awful. Don Johnson was terrible as Elvis. He tried a Southern accent and it didn't work, and he doesn't look anything like Elvis. No. Okay, moving on to the next one.
By the way, I like Don Johnson better in Miami Vice when he had his alligator named Elvis. That was more exciting. If you remember in the show, he had a pet crocodile or alligator, and he was named Elvis.
Okay, yeah, I remember.
He was always on the deck of his boat.
All right, our next movie is Heartbreak Hotel, which came out in 1988, and that starred David Keith. And for those who don't know David Keith was Oscar. He had almost an Oscar-nominated performance in Officer and a Gentleman with Richard Gere. So again, here's a situation where they casted David Keith, and David Keith has curly hair. So they had a hell of a time trying to get his hair to look anything like Elvis. Oh. You know, his hair was just too curly. Now, he already had a Southern accent, so he did good. His voice sounded pretty good. He didn't do the exact mannerisms of Elvis, but, you know, arguably this is what actors want to do. They want to have their own interpretation of Elvis, right? They don't want to be a mimic or a copy. And I think David Keith did a pretty good job. He tried to do it, but he just didn't look like Elvis. He certainly couldn't sing like Elvis. For those of you collectors out there, there's a single with an Elvis impersonator on the picture sleeve. And it's one side it's Elvis singing Heartbreak Hotel, and the other side it's David Keith singing it with Charlie Schaefer, a young kid that was an up-and-coming guy like Michael J. Fox in the 80s, but unfortunately his career didn't go very far. So the movie itself, it was a fantasy. It says it's a rock and roll fantasy because remember Elvis comes to their town. The mother, played by Tuesday Weld, by the way, Tuesday Weld from Wild in the Country, right? Yeah. Tuesday Weld plays a woman who's all heartbroken and depressed, and so her son goes and kidnaps Elvis. You know, from a filmmaker standpoint, it was directed by Chris Columbus. You know he did? You know what he's done?
No.
Gremlins.
Oh.
And Home Alone. Same guy, Chris Columbus.
It's been so long since I've seen it, I don't remember. To be honest, I don't remember it that much. I have the soundtrack. I've got the vinyl album. Okay. You know, I have that. Oh, yeah. But I don't remember them. I don't remember the movies. It's been so many. I think that one I did see, but it's been so many years.
It wasn't too bad.
It was about, you know, but it
wasn't too bad. It was fun.
Yeah, well,
I mean, they didn't base it on reality.
No, it was a fantasy.
And they say right off the bat it's a fantasy. Yeah. So, all right, getting on to the next one. Now, this one is actually one of my favorite Elvis or movies about Elvis, which is supposedly based on fact. All right, and it's called Elvis Meets Nixon, and it came out in 1997. And I'll never forget. When I watched this movie, I was a big Moonlighting fan, okay? I really loved Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd, and it was one of my favorite shows. And a lot of the last season was directed by a director by the name of, I think his name was, I got his name here. Alan Arkush. He directed some of the funniest moonlighting episodes in the last 2 seasons. When he was hired to do this movie, he was going to do it with a comedic twist to it. I mean, Elvis basically decides he's going to go get a badge from Nixon, and they have a lot of fun with the story. I liked it because it was funny, and I think personally, if Elvis was alive and he saw it, he'd probably laugh because it is kind of ridiculous. But you know, if he really did the stuff that they say he did, well, it is a comedy.
I liked it because I thought it was funny, and there's so many stories about what really happened there. And did he really want a badge, or was he really concerned about drugs in America, the drug culture?
Yeah.
And I heard that Priscilla dared him. And he said one time, didn't Priscilla say something to him like, who do you think? You think you just can get in and see the president, or you think you're and supposedly then he said, "Oh, I'll show you and I'll go."
Yeah.
And he showed up unannounced. It is true. He showed up unannounced.
Yeah.
At the White House. He was not invited there. He just he rang the buzzer. "Hey, it's Elvis. I'm here to see Nixon."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is a bizarre. It is a bizarre story. I've heard some of the guys talk about those guys, Red West and Sonny, and those guys have talked about it.
It's such a crazy idea that Elvis just at one moment said, "You know what? I'm going to go meet Nixon," and pulls up at the White House and says, "Hi, I'm Elvis. Tell the president I'm here."
By the way, that photo of Elvis and Nixon is the most requested photo in the Washington archives.
Yep.
It's always the most requested photo that people want. Elvis shaking hands with Richard Nixon.
Yeah, unbelievable. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that was a good movie. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. The next movie is another comedy. This one is so far out there, folks. I mean, and I know some of you had to have seen it. Bubba Hotep, which came out in 2002, and it starred Bruce Campbell and was directed by Don Coscarelli, I think is his name, who did Phantasm, the horror film Phantasm. This is the movie where Bruce Campbell from Evil Dead, if you know who Bruce Campbell is, Bruce Campbell plays Elvis as if Elvis had faked his death, right? And now he's many, many years older. Nobody knows he's alive. He meets Ozzie Davis, who plays John F. Kennedy. Now, Ozzie Davis is black. John F. Kennedy is not. And he said that somebody kidnapped him and dyed his skin black so nobody would know that it's JFK. And that his death was fake too. And then make matters even worse, nearby this old folks home, all right, a train goes off the road carrying a mummy to when King Tut was on tour. I don't know if you remember that. And the train goes off the track, the mummy coffin opens up, and the mummy gets up and walks out. And he starts haunting this old folks home. And so now it's Elvis and John F. Kennedy versus the mummy. Did you see it?
I only saw bits and parts of it. You recommended it, and I don't think I ever really sat down and watched the whole thing.
Well, let me tell you something.
Only parts of it.
The only reason I watched it was because I read a review where this guy in Chicago reviewed the film. And Bruce Campbell made an appearance at a theater in Chicago promoting the film, which I wanted to go to really bad. But this guy was raving, saying that Bruce Campbell did the greatest Elvis portrayal of Elvis, even though he's old. He's supposedly in his 70s or 80 or late 70s. He said his portrayal of Elvis was so down to earth and so real, you'd swear to God that if Elvis had faked his death and he was still alive, this would have been Elvis. It was very interesting because he talks, you hear his thoughts, right? Kind of like Dexter, right? He's laying in the bed, you hear his thoughts, and he talks about Lisa Marie and what he did wrong with Lisa Marie and how much he loved her and he wished he could see her again. And I don't know, I thought it was a great movie. So I would recommend it for Elvis fans, but don't take it too serious. Okay, so moving on. Now here we go. Here's Elvis and Nixon. Did you see it?
I did not see it.
Oh,
I did not. This one, I remember when it came out.
Good.
And I remember Kevin Spacey. It was more serious though about it.
It was serious.
It was more true to life, or what it was really supposed to be.
The other one was a comedy. Michael Shannon is a very well-respected actor in Chicago. I guess he's won many awards. You may know him. Those of you superhero nuts out there who watch Man of Steel, okay, he played Zod. So when I heard he was going to play Elvis, I knew he didn't look like Elvis. And then I saw some pictures where they did his hair. But no matter what they did to Michael Shannon, he's no Elvis. But his performance was so down to earth and real. It was I was impressed.
I remember when it came out, and I remember Kevin Spacey doing interviews about it and everything. But
he wasn't bad as Nixon. I've seen a lot of people play Nixon. Including Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But I think Kevin Spacey was really good. I think both of them were good. I think it was a very serious, genuine account of what happened.
I heard Nixon didn't want to meet him, but then some of his aides said it could be good for young.
That's true.
Meeting young people, it could be good for the with your audience of the young people, and they might like the fact that you're meeting Nixon or having this photo shoot. So you should, because I don't think Nixon wanted to do it.
He did not, and it's in the movie. Anyway, good movie. I thought it was good. I liked it. Let's flip down to the TV shows, because not only were there movies about Elvis, there were TV shows. And I did some research, and there were 3. One of them, which I never saw, but we'll start with the first one. The first one was just called Elvis. That's why this show is called Elvis, folks, because everything is called Elvis. Anyway, Elvis was a TV series in 1990, and it starred Michael St. Gerard and Millie Perkins as his mother, and Millie Perkins played opposite him in Wild in the Country, right? Which is kind of weird. But anyway, it was a half-hour show, and it came on right after Roseanne. And I know that because we were a big fan of Roseanne. We always watched Roseanne. And then Elvis came on. And we watched like every episode, and it was okay, but it was kind of boring because it really didn't work out that well being a series, because they prolonged a lot of things. But they went back to the very beginning. I mean, when he was, first discovered, and, Sam Phillips discovered him. Most of Elvis, the TV show, the first one, took place in Elvis's younger years. Now, did you see any of it?
I think I saw maybe 1 or 2 episodes and I stopped. I'm just not a big fan of these recreations. I thought he looked kind of like Elvis, and
he did.
He had a resemblance of Elvis, but
young Elvis.
Yeah, yeah. But they just don't do a lot for me, these things, and I just.
Okay, then how about the mini series in 2005? And this, I got to tell you, I never saw it. It was called Elvis. Again, Elvis. It was a miniseries in 2005, and it starred Jonathan Rhys Meyers. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but he went on to do other things. He actually got into movies and kind of made a name for himself in motion pictures after this. But he played Elvis, and then Randy Quaid played the Colonel. Yeah. And Randy, we're talking about the guy from Vacation.
Yeah.
Michael, what was his name? The guy from Vacation? Cousin Eddie? Yeah, it was Cousin Eddie.
Yeah.
Randy Quaid playing the Colonel was enough for me not to want to watch it.
I think I remember the last one. This one I remember, and I remember about Randy Quaid, but again, I didn't watch it.
So if any of the viewers out there, if you saw that movie, Elvis, or the mini-series that we're talking about, give us some comments about that down below, because I don't know. I've never.
Well, did any of these go past 1 year? And
well,
I don't even know how many
this
years.
mini-series was, I think it was a 2-night event.
Oh.
That's why they called it a mini-series.
Okay.
Yeah, it was only 2 nights.
Okay, yeah, then.
Yeah. So the other show went on, I think, about 8 episodes. There were about 8 episodes, and then it got canceled. Finally, one of the most horrible, and I mean horrible, movies ever made about Elvis, and this really pisses me off as an Elvis fan. It's called Elvis and Me, and it's based on Priscilla Presley's book, Elvis and Me. So I had to watch it. I never read her book. My wife, Carol, read it. I was just curious as hell. I had to see this. Now, the guy who plays Elvis, again, was not exactly, he didn't look exactly like him, but he certainly looked more like him than Don Johnson did. And his name was Dale Midkiff. And the only thing people will remember him from, he was in Pet Sematary, the first Pet Sematary from the 80s. I just thought it was awful because I don't know if Priscilla purposely wrote just terrible things about Elvis in her book, but Elvis looks like a complete, pardon my language, asshole through the entire movie, and he's just terrible. They painted this horrible portrait of him, and I remember, I watched the whole thing, but afterwards I felt so bad for Elvis, and then I thought, Priscilla, why would you do that? How did you approve this movie? And if this movie was based on your book, why would you say all these terrible things about him, even if they were true? Keep that stuff quiet. You know, we don't need to know that kind of stuff. It's like you and I when we had that dinner, right, with John Wilkinson.
Yeah.
You know, he told us some wild stories, but I don't think I'd ever want to repeat them.
No.
You know? And can you imagine Elvis's ex-wife getting on there and saying these horrible things? You never saw it.
I never saw. I heard about parts of the book, but I don't remember this being on television. And if it was that bad, I'm glad I didn't watch it. But I remember the book, and I know she wrote a lot of very personal things that happened, you know, with Elvis and in between them, which again I think is private stuff that nobody needs to really know about, that kind of stuff. You know, these celebrities, they write these kiss and tell books all the time. I don't like it. I don't like kiss and tell books. And I think there are just some things that should remain private between a man and a wife.
And the movie was not very well done. It was not a great movie by no means. And Dale Midkiff did not do a great job as Elvis. He didn't even try to sound like Elvis. I mean, his southern accent was horrible. But again, it was, you know, another failed attempt, I think, at trying to, you know, dramatize and make a movie about Elvis. And I can't remember, I think it was just a single, no, it's a mini-series, so I don't know if it was 2 nights or 3 nights, but whatever the case, I remember watching it and I felt really bad. I felt so sorry for Elvis, and then I really got, I really disliked Priscilla for it.
I'm surprised Priscilla is as popular as she is still in some ways then. I don't know. You know, after that book and stuff.
Well, you know as well as I do.
Fans seem to, you know, many fans seem to still love her, and they cheer when she appears at all these Elvis functions in Memphis. But
you know as well as I do, okay, from all the times that we talked with Sonny West and all of the, you know, some of the Memphis Mafia, you know, she was not very well liked by them.
No.
At a certain point. You know, she was a young girl when she first went there, and to Graceland, to stay at Graceland. I think she was 16, maybe, or something
16,
like that.
Yeah, I think 16 when she moved in officially.
Yeah, officially. So,
well, I understand a lot of that why, but that goes into a whole lot of.
That's a whole nother show.
That's a whole nother show about all that person. I mean, but I mean, I never walked a mile in Priscilla's shoes, so
yeah,
you know,
it's hard to say that.
But then again, Priscilla is who she is because she married Elvis.
Right.
And if she hadn't married Elvis, we wouldn't even know who she. I mean, she got a lot of fame and glory also from being Elvis
and let's
Presley's
face
wife.
it. No, you're right. I think it was something that just didn't work. Then the movie didn't work. It's just the series just didn't work for me. So we'll leave it at that. Okay, so now let's talk about the new movie and expectations. First of all, give me your immediate reaction to the trailer when you finally saw it, because I know I called you up and said, "Oh my God, you've got to see this trailer." You know, I was really excited.
Well,
what did you think?
Well, I thought it looks. You can tell, obviously, they spent some money.
A lot
because
of money.
they recreate so many things really vividly, so you can tell. Plus, it's got Tom Hanks, and I know Tom Hanks is a big Elvis fan. You know, I remember him talking about Girl. You know, some of Elvis's wild movies, Girl Happy,
and Castaway. Remember in Castaway. He
has the CDs because he was an Elvis. Yeah, because he worked at FedEx in Memphis.
Right.
I think. So the trailer looks great. I mean, it looks. Again, nobody is Elvis. No one is going to play Elvis. You know, but it looks. I think it looks very good. I thought it's got a lot of interesting things visually. Speaking like I said, they spent the money for it. So I thought it looks. I'm hopeful that this will be really great and be up there and even get Oscar nominations and that kind of things. For the director, or I hope it's on that level as far as visually, but as far as what's going to be in the movie, we'll talk about that. But I liked the trailer. I liked what I saw. His moves are great. You can see he studied Elvis. Yeah. He studied a lot of film footage of Elvis moving with his karate moves and all the stuff in '68 and how Elvis swung the guitar at the special. So you can see he did his homework. So I give the kid credit. You know, he did his. It looks good. I mean, Tom Hanks. I'm a little confused by. I've heard Colonel Parker speak. I've seen some of his interviews. I don't necessarily understand the real thick accent.
Yeah, the southern drawl.
Yeah,
did the Colonel really have a southern drawl?
A little bit, but he doesn't have that. Was he Hungarian? Was he?
He's from the Netherlands.
But Colonel Parker did not speak the way in real life the way Tom Hanks is playing it. It looks good. I'm hopeful. I'm hoping that it does really well.
My reaction, and I'll be honest, I mean, it brought tears to my eyes. It literally did. I'm watching this thing, and I just got this emotional rush. And I'm watching it, and everything was so precise. I mean, he looked like Elvis. The costumes, when he walks out on the stage in the '68 comeback, it looked like the stage at NBC Studios. When he's walking behind the curtain in Las Vegas to go out, it looks like it was a cut from.
Yeah,
that's the way it is. His movements, the rhythm, everything. And of course, the music. I love the fact that they chose Suspicious Minds to start off the trailer. I thought that was awesome. Obviously, being my favorite song by Elvis. But I mean, I was emotionally taken away by it, and I'll tell you why. Because I think Elvis fans everywhere are at a point where they're tired of Elvis and the Beauty Queen and all, and Elvis beats Godzilla, and I mean, they're tired of that. I mean, as far back as I can remember, when Elvis died, after I saw the first movie with Kurt Russell, I thought, maybe someday down the road they'll do, because that was a TV movie too, by the way, that Kurt Russell. I think it was released in Europe in the theaters, but here it was on TV. I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if someday they would do a big movie on Elvis? Because I remember when La Bamba came out. No, Buddy Holly Story. When the Buddy Holly Story came out, and Gary Busey, of course, was nominated for an Oscar, did a fantastic job, I kept thinking, wow, why don't they do this with Elvis? So years and years and years has gone by, and nobody's ever done it.
Nope.
So finally, when I'm sitting there and I saw that trailer, and like you said, they spent money. Because you could see, you are like transported in that trailer back to all of those time periods. Even the early stuff where he's in the tent and he's singing, with the gospel singers, the black gospel singers, which is what Elvis did originally, that inspired him to move and everything. And then they show him moving as a kid, and they show him moving on stage. One shot that got me, and I still think it's funny, I think everybody will agree, and you'll agree, is when Elvis comes out on the stage and the Colonel's watching, he starts singing and shaking. There's a girl in the front row. Baz Luhrmann, as the director, does a crotch shot of Elvis, and you see his crotch moving, and she's like,
that's what he was about.
And then she starts screaming. I mean, how, you got to hand it to Baz Luhrmann already, the director, because how do you show what got those girls so excited? Elvis didn't know what he was doing. Elvis just got up there, and he would shake, right? and in the movie, Baz Luhrmann says, okay, how do we really emphasize these girls? What are these girls looking at? Crotch. I mean, that really got me. You were talking about the famous picture of Nixon and Elvis. Well, there's another famous picture that Baz Luhrmann in the trailer shows, and that's the moment when Elvis finds out his mom has died, and he's sitting on the steps outside with his father, and you see Elvis is crying, and his father puts his arm over him. Now, this was before you went to Memphis. There was this guy who set up in our show many years ago, and he was a local photographer. He lived in Memphis, and he had worked for the newspaper in Memphis. And when Elvis's mother died, the newspaper sent him to Graceland, and they were just doing interviews and everything. And Elvis, from what I understand, what he told me, Elvis couldn't talk. So Elvis basically, just kind of broke down and walked away from the people trying to talk to him. He sits down on the steps of Graceland, and his father comes around and sits down and puts his arm around him while he's crying. And Jim Reed, this guy, the photographer, he snaps that picture. And when I saw that in the movie, oh my God, they're getting everything right. I mean, they're nailing everything as it was. I don't know what they're going to do in the later part when Elvis is older, because they got a problem here. The only problem with Austin is that he's young.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to age him. I don't know how far this movie goes. They obviously go into the 70s. I don't know if they go up to his death or not, but they should.
Yeah, I think there's a scene, looks like, where he's saying goodbye, or he blows a kiss to Lisa Marie. So that's supposed to be probably around the time when they're getting a divorce. That's 73. Right. So I don't know how they're gonna handle the death. I don't know how much detail they're gonna go into that. I think this movie is gonna be viewed by people in two different ways. Whether you're older and you lived through Elvis in his time, and you're going to view it, I think, one way, and if you're younger and you weren't even on the planet when Elvis died. And I think for those people, it needs to be a history lesson. I hope the movie really goes into depth about what life was like in the 50s, the 60s, especially the 60s, the swinging 60s, the turbulent 60s in the back. That's what I want to see.
Well, they need that to show how Elvis affected that. I mean, how it affected him.
You have to, and how big. I saw a review of some young people, and they were saying, I don't know how Elvis became so famous. There was no internet, there was no cell phones.
Yeah,
it's amazing. I'm thinking, so I'm thinking for these people, it's like, listen, this man was. You have to understand where he came from. He was a shock to the system. I mean, when Lucille Ball was pregnant, you have to remember, they couldn't use the word pregnant because it was considered offensive.
They couldn't show her pregnant.
This is the backdrop of what Elvis emerged from and what he came from, in the fact that no white boy ever walked on the stage and shook like that and sang. I mean, it was a shock to the system. So I hope that they can I hope that's the part of the movie that they show. For me personally, I want to walk out, because we know Elvis so well. I want to walk out and say, damn, I never knew that about Elvis. I never knew. That's what I want. The imagery part, we all know that. I can watch That's the Way It Is. Yeah. I can watch The Law. You can watch all of that stuff. Everybody has seen that. I want to learn something about the man. I want him to be respected in the movie, not as perfect, but that he was a flawed human being, but he was a great artist and musician and taken seriously. I'm tired of hearing Jimi Hendrix was a great guitarist. The Beatles were great writers. Bob Dylan. And then with Elvis, let's face it, what did they do? Thank you very much. And give me one of them fried peanut butter. I'm tired of that shit. I don't want to see that in this movie. That's part of the imagery of Elvis. I want to explore Elvis, the man, in this movie. I want to know what his opinion was of the 60s. How did he feel about the blending of black and white culture in music?
Well, yeah, but there's a part in the movie, in the trailer. Remember when John F. Kennedy is shot? He comes in and he said something about.
That's Dr. King's shot.
Oh, Dr. King. He goes, that shouldn't affect us, and he goes, that you're wrong. That should affect us completely.
Yes.
So that was interesting. That was a cool thing to see. Yeah. That Elvis commenting on what happened.
Right. That's what I want to see in the movie. I want to see his opinion. Like I said, the imagery, the belts, the jumpsuits, and all, we all know that. I want to delve into his personality.
And here's another thing too. As a filmmaker, I want to see a great performance by the director as well. I mean, I think John Carpenter did a great job with the TV movie at the time, but he was young and he was a first-time director. Baz Luhrmann is an accomplished director who has been nominated for Academy Awards, if I'm correct. And he did Moulin Rouge, which was a huge success. He did The Great Gatsby with Leonardo DiCaprio. He did them his way. He kind of did them different. He has his own style, and he has this magnificent eye for detail. And boy, you can see it in that trailer. We've been waiting for this moment for a long time, folks. So we're hoping that Baz Luhrmann doesn't screw this up. Because if he screws this up, you will never see a $150 million film on Elvis Presley ever again. It'll never happen. This is a huge gamble. And, thank God that the studios were willing to do it. They went with Luhrmann because he has credibility and he's good at musical type things. And of course they're going to try to cash in on the success of Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, and success of Rocket Man. If young people don't go for it, oh well. It would be sad. Yeah, it would be sad if they didn't, because if this is an accurate interpretation and he brings a modern day spin to it of filmmaking, his camera techniques are different, or the editing is different, or whatever. then younger people will finally appreciate Elvis for who he was, and he won't be the fat guy that died on the toilet. He will get the respect that he deserves for what he did for music.
As still the greatest artist of all time, the icon of icons, and that's what people have to understand. That's how important Elvis was.
Yeah.
I mean, when Elvis died, the world stopped. Okay, folks? You young people, I mean, Elvis was the top story for 3 or 4 nights on the major news, and that hadn't happened since the assassination of John Kennedy.
Yeah.
So when Elvis died, the whole world came to a complete...
Yeah, no other death of a musician ever. I mean, I know Prince was a shock, Michael Jackson was a shock, but none of it had the effect on the world that Elvis Presley had, and nobody can explain it. Everybody would just say he was a dumb hillbilly,
because he was beloved. He was the biggest. He was the biggest star of all. That's what I hope young people. I hope it just creates more Elvis fans. I hope that fans have that moment that you had, that I had when I was 8, when I simply fell in love with Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
I heard one song for 2 minutes, and I was obsessed with Elvis the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. And folks, that's the most Johnny B has ever talked at one moment. Ever, by the way. That's why he's the Elvis disciple, okay? All right? Oh, and there's this big fan out there, Michael. I'm looking forward to it. And, boy, it can't come too soon for me. I can't wait. We're going to Memphis for the 45th anniversary, so it's going to be big. Again, want to remind everybody to please subscribe to the channel. If you have any comments about the movies we mentioned, whether you like them or hate them, or we misread something, because we're not experts, we're just Elvis fans trying to pass on some information. If you have some information, put it in the comments below. So it's been a great show, and thank you, John, for coming by.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And that guy that doesn't like you, you want to say something? You want to say one last thing to him?
No, that's all
right. No? All right. Don't forget to send your inquiries and want lists to collectingtheking@gmail.com. I think I've said that a million times, so I almost forgot. But anyway, I'm Robert Alaniz, and this is Johnny B, and we are
out of here.